I inlaid gold into my carbon fiber handle, so in this video, I'm super excited to try something I've never done before. I'm gonna make my handle look like it was dipped in glass. For the finish I wanna do, we're gonna use Spray Max 2K. The 2K means 2 component. There's a little container inside of here that you actually break open and mix it in with the rest of it. Once you do that, you have a limited shelf life on this because it'll start to harden even in the can. So you have to use it up within a certain amount of time. Here's some of the different materials I've tested this 2K finish on to see if it would stick, to see how many coats I needed to put on, and to try out different finishing techniques. This is just a piece of malachite. I wanted to see how it looked on the green stone. This is a piece of wood with 6 coats over here and 9 coats over here because I wanted to see how it would fill in the wood grain. And it took about 9 coats before it fully filled in that wood grain. Got some carbon fiber. So far, none of these test pieces have been sanded on. And then down here, this piece has been. This is another piece of carbon fiber, and I was trying out different finishes on this. It only had 6 coats on it though, and I kind of burned through a little bit. Got a piece of wood here, and I was actually able to get the finish looking the way I wanted, but again, I burned through. It had 6 coats on this one as well. And then we come down here to some really good test results. This is the other half of that Mammoth Ivory scale. I love the way the finish came out. It filled in almost everything, but there's a few little fissures and cracks that were in the Mammoth Ivory that it didn't quite fill up. So now I know what it will fill and what it won't fill. Next time I could fill those little gaps with something and then do the finish and it would all be super smooth. But this piece looks like it's dipped in glass basically. And then down here we have 9 coats. This is on a piece of African blackwood and I was able to get the finish looking exactly how I wanted. This looks like it's dipped in glass. I love the way it came out. One of the biggest benefits about this 2K finish is that each coat dries pretty quickly, so you can apply many coats over a shorter period of time, and it gets very, very hard. Because it's catalyzed, you can almost think of it like an epoxy. You're mixing these 2 different things together that chemically react and get it to dry faster and harder than a lot of other products out there. So why do I even want to do a 2K finish? The journey started about a year ago when I took a knife to the Atlanta Blade Show. It was a piece of stabilized handle material that buffed up shinier than any handle material I've ever used. I want to repeat that shiny finish on my handles whenever I want it though, instead of it just being a random chance that it happened because the piece of wood was extra nice. So I've been on a journey since then to find a finish, and I think this is going to be the one. After all this testing, I'm gonna finally see how it works on a handle. What led me to this finish was looking at the car industry and also guitar industries. People making custom guitars and getting beautiful finishes on them. I play electric guitar and all my guitars have really, really shiny, durable finishes that can really take a beating and still look very nice. The reason I wanna use it on our carbon fiber handle is because the carbon fiber looks super chatoyant when it's hand sanded. I love that chatoyance, but then when I buff it, I've tried many different wheels and compounds, and in order to get it shiny, I lose some of that chatoyance. So I want to get the handle extremely shiny and have that chatoyance at the same time. Coffee break. Time to release the catalyst. And shake. That's already looking really cool. Oh, this is exciting. It instantly looks really, really cool just with one light coat on. I only put a light coat on because you're supposed to just do a really light coat, and then we're gonna wait 10 minutes, and put a heavy coat on, and then wait 10 minutes and do another pretty heavy coat.
The next day.
After doing our first 3 coats, I let the handle dry for 24 hours. We're now ready to scuff up the finish with some 600 grit sandpaper so that the next 3 coats will adhere to the first 3 coats better. By the way, I am super happy with how this is looking so far. It immediately added tons of shine to the handle. The chatoyance up here on the edges of the handle looks super, super cool. When you put it in really bright light and move it around, it just dances. I can't wait to see what it looks like when we get all 9 coats on here and get it polished out. Right now it has a little bit of an orange peel texture, but we're not concerned about that at all because we're gonna keep putting more coats on and then we'll sand it all nice and flat later on. Once I've roughed up the finish, it's time for another 3-coat session. I do a light coat first, let it dry for about 10 or 15 minutes, do a heavier coat, dry for 10 or 15 minutes, and then do a third final coat. I'm trying my best to apply the finish evenly so we don't end up with any places that has really chunky amounts or places that end up with really thin amounts. You want to level up your knife making? If so, we made a membership just for you. Once you join the membership, you will be able to see how I make a massive folder called Enigma. Every month, you'll get exclusive content that will level up your knife making. So join now if you're interested in making a liner lock folder. It's only $25 a month. The link's in the description. So while that's drying, I'm going to work on the engraving on the fittings. We're going to be doing the XCAL logo in solid gold. We're also going to have a couple of these lines that go across the guard and pommel be gold as well. This pattern that we're going to do on the guard and the pommel kind of represent the feature wall that XCAL has in their building. It's this really big wall that has these lines across it, kind of going in a similar fashion to what I've drawn here. And then a couple of the lines have lights in them. Instead of lights, I'll have a couple of lines that have 24 karat gold in them instead. Before I do the real thing, I want to do some practice because I always like to do a little practice before I start engraving a new project. A couple hours later, here's my practice piece. We've got a couple lines here that have silver inlay. I keep in mind this has just been heat colored to kind of a blue color just to give it a little bit of a representation of what it'll look like. However, it will have a finer finish. It'll be mirror polished and gun blued, a jet black color when it's finished. And of course, we'll have gold instead of silver. This looks really good. We're gonna start on the end of the pommel with it. I'm gonna use my dividers to mark out the perimeter. We're gonna cut that in and then we'll start laying out some lines for the gold inlay parts. I use blue Dykem layout fluid on the end of the pommel so I can see the line I'm making with my dividers easily. Using my GRS engraving equipment with a 105-degree point on my graver. I'm also using a low-powered microscope so I can clearly see where I'm cutting. Once the border's cut in, I lay out and begin cutting in the lines for our gold inlay. All these lines going at different angles will be filled with 24 karat gold. I've also dovetailed all the grooves so the gold will stay in once I smash it into place. I nail the gold with a small torch to, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Josh, cut that clip out. That first strand of gold was a little too thin and it wouldn't fit in the grooves I made. So we're gonna move on to some thicker gold, but this stuff's a little too thick, so we need to thin it down. This time, so I don't accidentally melt it off, I'm just gonna use a cigarette lighter. I pull the gold through a draw plate that has carbide inserts in it, taking it from 20 thousandths of an inch down to about 14 or 15 thousandths of an inch in diameter. It doesn't sound like much, but it's actually exactly what I needed. Just for reference, the gold that was too small was about 12 thousandths of an inch thick. So even a couple thousandths of an inch can make a big difference here. This was my first time ever using a draw plate to make my wire a little bit smaller. Now that the gold has been sized perfectly for these grooves, we can smash it in. This is one of my favorite parts of engraving because it's really satisfying to smash the soft gold into the dovetailed grooves. It looks kind of rough right now, but it should clean up when we hand sand everything flat. Now that the gold inlay is in, I'm gonna clean up the ends of the gold that went into our border lines and then start cutting more lines, kind of going at random different angles across all the gold lines. That'll represent all the black lines on XCAL's feature wall. And now let's do the engraving on the guard. If you know me, then you know I like layout lines. So I put layout lines all over the side of this guard, maybe too many of them actually. I need those layout lines to lay out the stencil we're gonna use to electrochemically etch the XCAL logo into the guard. I get the stencil's electrolyte and neutralizer all from IMG. Once the stencil is placed where I want it over the guard, I begin electrochemically etching in the mark. I'm using a DC current at 32 volts. I have one wire hooked to the guard and the other wire is hooked to our electrode. It's just a piece of metal with a layer of felt on the end of it and a little bit of electrolyte. Every minute or two, I pull up one side of the stencil and clean underneath it with a Q-tip and check how the mark's looking.
There it is. Looks really good. Got to make it deeper, dovetail it, put some little teeth at the bottom, and then we'll smash some gold in there. I finished inlaying the 24 karat gold into the XCAL logo. The groove for the XCAL logo was so wide that I had to use a couple strands of wire. So I used a larger diameter wire and then a thinner one and just smashed them in there together. That's one of the really nice things about gold inlay is you can use multiple strands and smash it all in, and then it just looks like it's one big solid chunk of gold in there. The next thing I want to do is outline the border by first marking it with dividers and then cutting it in with the engraver. So I'm gonna spray some Dicom so I can see the lines I'm about to create a little easier. It took a couple days, but I just finished the engraving and I'm super happy with it. I think it really, really resembles the feature wall that XCAL has in their building, and I just love it. We've got all the gold lines that represent the lights on the feature wall, and then all the lines without gold in them just represent the little grooved lines on the feature wall. I think those gold lines are really gonna pop once this is gun blued. They should just be glowing, kind of like the lights are on the actual feature wall. We've also got the XCAL logo right here. That was a humongous surface area to fill with gold. I ended up using a really thick strand of gold I had and a thin strand and stuck them in there side by side and smashed it all together. I love doing that. It's so fun to take wires and actually fill out an area with little wires and have a big surface of gold filled out. We applied all 9 coats of the 2K finish on the handle and let it dry inside for about 9 days. It should be completely ready to go for finishing. My plan is to hand sand the handle with 1500 grit to get rid of all the little imperfections in the spray finish, then go over it with 3000 and then begin buffing it to get it polished up real nicely. I want this handle to look like it was literally dipped in glass. I've just begun to wet sand our 2K finish on the main surfaces now. I'm using some water and 1500 grit sandpaper to get rid of all the imperfections. Then we'll probably go to 3000 grit after that and then do the buffing process after that. Dude, that looks good. Oh, that looks even. Oh, that looks really good. We're definitely getting rid of those little imperfections.
After getting the handle hand sanded to 3000 grit, I began buffing on it very gently.
For the most part, the handle came out looking amazing. It looks like it was dipped in glass, but I had a couple trouble areas that I had to sand on a lot, and because of that, I sanded through the finish right here and right here. Burning through the finish happened from me sanding this area right here. There was some kind of a weird texture that I just thought was on the last couple layers, so I sanded through it, not realizing that I was actually going through pretty much all the layers. So that's why we got a little bare spot there. And the same thing happened with this bare spot. I was really focusing on sanding out some weird little bubbly things right here. We only got those weird bubbly things though right here and right here. I don't know if I sprayed it on a weird angle or put it on too thick or what, but something I did there caused that weird problem and I had to sand it to get rid of it and burn through. So I'm gonna start back all over again. We're gonna rough up the handle and probably do a full-blown 9 coats to build it up nice and thick again. Hopefully we won't get those weird little bubbly areas, and redo this finish. You don't need to see that though. Hopefully it'll come out looking just like this handle, minus the 2 little places that didn't work out, and it'll be all good to go from that point. Because for the most part, this looks dipped in glass. And I will see you in the next video. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to check out Knifemaker Plus, the link's in the description.